Now I want to introduce Roger Smith Sr., who's the husband of Sarah Smith, just to welcome you and to offer a few comments as we begin this morning on behalf of his family. Roger?
Thanks, Chris. On behalf of the Smith family, I'd like to welcome you all to the 3rd annual Sarah Smith Conference. Sarah had 2 passions in life. The first passion was family, to raise a good family and to take care of me. There are 3 sons. My son Reed over here. Reed, if you could stand up a minute. And Scott over here. My 3rd son's coming a little bit later. He just formed his own company, and he said, Dad, I've got a conference call at 9 o'clock to get my first client. What do you think? And I said, do the right thing, which is what Sarah used to tell Scott. So he's decided to do that, so he'll join us a little bit later. The second passion she had was to get people fired up about their faith. And she went to Yale Divinity School and graduated in 1991, as some of you probably know. And after that, she went out and gave speeches and ran seminars and wrote a book. And as she did that, the focus of her passion shifted over to moral leadership. And she felt that moral leadership was something that was lacking. Was lacking in the general population, and was something that really needed to be rebuilt in the United States. That was really before we all saw Enron and WorldCom and HealthSouth and the backdating of options. And I think now moral leadership is much more in the fore than it used to be. And it isn't just an issue of religion or faith. It's really an issue that cuts across. So one of the things the Divinity School has done, and we thank Harry for doing that, is to reach out to the law school, reach out to the business school, and make this more of an interconnected activity, because it really is interconnected if you look at moral leadership. And she was early in identifying that, and we've really kind of seen that come forward. So I'd like, on behalf of the family, to welcome you all. I hope you enjoyed the day. Yale's attracted a very strong group of interesting speakers who have a lot to say. I think last night, talking about connectedness, talking about trust, and talking about building skills are really important, because this isn't, moral leadership doesn't sort of start from the top down. Moral leadership really comes from the bottom up. It's taught by the family, it's taught by the churches that take care of young people, it's taught by the institutions that deal with young people, and those are the schools and so on. So a lot to think about here, and I think to think about both of the 30,000-foot issues, but also sort of on-the-ground issues of how do we make this actually real in the community that we're in, and make this something that will be a change and a hallmark of the United States, because we're losing a little bit of that, and we need to get it back, and I know we can. The question is when and how do we do that. But on behalf of the Smith family, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and we hope that you will help support continuing these conferences going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Roger, on behalf of all of us and your 3 sons, Scott, Reed, and Roger Jr. My name is David Miller. I serve here in the center as well with the team, and wanted I'm the introducer of the introducer at the moment before we have our main meal. I'd like to introduce Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, who's the Senior Associate Dean of Executive Programs down at our sister professional school, the Yale School of Management. Jeff is also the Lester Crown Professor of Practice in Management. So Jeff is admired deeply by scholars as a scholar around the world in the field of leadership particularly, but also deeply and widely respected by practitioners for linking the 2 worlds together. We've partnered on many projects together, so it's a personal joy to have Jeff come and introduce Collin Timms, because Jeff completely gets the role of values in leadership and respects that faith is one of those sources of values. So let's welcome Jeff to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you very much, David, thanks so much for those kind words. It really is an honor to be here for several reasons. those of you who are part of the Yale community take all of our Gothic art, beautiful Gothic architecture for granted, and probably don't get the sensation that all of our visitors do each time they come when you say, my, it feels so church-like at the rest of Yale. And it's wonderful to come to the part of Yale that ironically is the Georgian red brick of Yale with the wonderful Jeffersonian style, or Jeremy Garlington, the Georgian, would claim this was his style here in the room. But it is a tremendous honor to be in this sanctuary at this location and at this time. I've never thought that it would be anything as challenging as introducing Collin Timms as his warm-up act, but hearing I'm the replacement for Bono, Chris, is really, if we had the time, and we don't, so I won't take you through the details, but I once wound up being in the eyes of Ted Turner's corporate retreat, the stand-in for Jerry Seinfeld, because somebody mispronounced my name. If you can imagine a set of faces even more disappointed than yours right now, you should have seen theirs. I hope you weren't expecting him. I think the worst part is that Seinfeld doesn't have to go around the country apologizing for not being me. But I'm not Bono either, and you don't want to hear me sing. It is an honor to rejoin this great event. I was happy to be a part of this group last year for another wonderful theme at this exact same time of year, and an honor to rejoin Roger and Roger Jr. and Scott and Reed and all of those who remember, revere, and have been inspired by the Sarah Smith legacy, her noble mission to encourage morality and leadership. And just as Roger said, what a propitious moment to reflect on what we really mean by moral leadership this very week. In the UN, we saw world leaders literally or virtually condemn each other in person as the devil. Around the globe, we've seen, sadly, Catholic and Muslim leaders embroiled in battle over the meaning of hostile words, of ancient hostile words about each other's means. In our nation, we've seen in the somewhat less horrifying but still somewhat alarming plane one of the nation's greatest global icons, HP, the nation's #2 technology giant, melting down in a sea of subterfuge and deceit, surveillance, and spiraling vengeance. It's truly biblical all on its own. And the California Attorney General, looking into that right now as we speak and leading the legal investigations, is ironically the exact same Attorney General 5 years ago this week began the investigations of the manipulation of the energy markets in California, done by, of course, Enron. And in fact, 5 years ago this week, Ken Lay was telling his employees of Enron to continue to buy stock as he began his sale of his last $90 million of holdings, or at least the big chunk, that $90 million of holdings he had at that time in September. And all this was against the backdrop of the not just the collapse of enterprise, but the collapse of buildings and lives in the shadows of 9/11, with some evil leaders cheering. And we wonder, where is morality and leadership on a week like this? Instead of responding to the hand-wringing angst of the sufferers of this sort of moral lapse in so many specters, or the cynicism of the media, the scolding of activists, well-intended activists, or sadly the silence of our generation of CEOs, this school, this center, and David, if you'll forgive me, you provide avenues for constructive engagement. We just need so much of what's represented here last night and today, instead of that hand-wringing. In fact, David's new book, God's Work, which he's going to hate me for even mentioning, but a comment that I had on it is, rather than celebrate late-life atonement to compensate for careers of corruption, David shows a long, proud tradition of leaders who reach for purpose in their work and compassion in the workplace. And this is something where we look at how do we understand spirituality and a moral backbone is not something new to American leadership, and yet it still somehow is controversial. It's just not understood. This event's theme couldn't, again, be better timed beyond world events. But for some of us, more personally in this community, this is the first day of the month of Tishra. For we Jews, or Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. And it begins a 10-day period called the Days of Oz, as many, if not all of you know, that ends on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And this is the most sacred time of year, weirdly, for our non-Jewish friends who can't quite figure out why the new year is not as happy as it should be. It's not an especially happy time, even as solemn as it is. We begin the most serious contemplation for what we've done wrong. And this is where, with our contemplation, and God's judgment is followed by essentially the judgment on the Day of Atonement. A critical element of this reflection is the theme, quite propitiously again, of your conference this year, and that is the theme of what happens to those crumbs. The personal charity, or tzedakah in Hebrew, which means righteousness, fairness, or justice, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't mean anything to do with generosity. Tzedakah is not considered an act of generosity, but an act of justice. Again, I think getting back to the Sarah Smith theme and mission is giving the poor their due. The giver is considered to actually benefit more than the recipient, because we have a chance to actually join the Almighty in something which we know is the right thing to do for once. The Torah has written that, for an agrarian economy, you're supposed to leave the corners of your fields. I see the head in the room probably already knows that, to leave the corners of the fields for the needy to harvest. Rabbi Moses Maimonides, a prominent 12th century physician as well as theologian and philosopher, said that the most virtuous assistance is to allow the recipient to become self-sufficient. And Collin, that's what brings us to you, is in this season of needing perspective on moral leadership, and in this season of looking to the role of charity, but a charity that isn't just philanthropy without some thought to the future, but how we help people to build self-sufficiency. Is you've modeled it yourself, and you do so much to help so many others. Collin, it's of many of the remarkable things about the Opportunity Microfinance of India, OMI, about Guardian, or about the parent operation of the 20-year legacy, the bridge, is you go to the website, and it's about the most modest website. We know many corporations that do far less good and far more evil, that have far more to say about how righteous they are. Is as humble as Collin is, as you see on the website of this trilogy of operations. They're not out there trying to sell themselves. So in fact, if you have to painstakingly draw it out of him, as hopefully we can tease out of him this morning, about himself, beginning with $2 or $16, became $16 out of $2 to build a wonderful network of services, from hotels, restaurants, stock brokerages, as only a portion of his life, though, to be part of the Christian community of Bangalore as it came together to form both initially mutual assistance, but then assisting others with well more than 250,000 jobs, and well over 100,000 families. If the dimensions are wrong, I can't ask Collin to lie to me, but I believe it's to back me up, but I believe it's somewhere along those lines, and who has been helped in a nation where half the population is at or below the poverty line. Is that sometimes these loans that go to help people become self-sufficient, to create new enterprises, to buy a cow or a few cows, or perhaps some plantings, or open a small store, have been extraordinarily successful. The spirit of Guardian is a proud one, a proud tradition, and it also is something that is so different than what one college president, who was also a U.S. Senator, if you remember, S.I. Hayakawa, who described charity in a way that wouldn't fit anything that Collin and his colleagues represent. As Hayakawa put it in political terms, he said a Democrat walking down on the banks of a river seeing a drowning person, will take a ring buoy and throw it to them and never notice there's no line attached. A Republican, he said, will be walking down the banks of the river, and he was a Republican but still self-critical. He said he'd take the ring buoy, the life preserver, and throw it 75 yards ahead, saying, swimming to it will help build character. Of course, what's wonderful here is there are no tests that somebody has to go through, is that this is character building, confidence building, and community building all at once. And Collin, is an honor myself to meet you this morning, and I'm sorry you have me instead of Bono. Thank you very much. Collin, if you would, yeah, thanks. He was afraid I left my debris all over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that was probably the best introduction I've ever received. I like to travel light, otherwise I'd like to take my friend along wherever I go, introducing me. First of all, I'd like to thank the Yale Center for Faith and Culture to give me this opportunity to be here and be able to see this beautiful city of New Haven and this beautiful place called Yale, which I've heard about all my life and never thought I'll be here and actually see it in person. I never had the grades, or I never had the money to ever come to Yale, and this was the only way I was ever going to do it. So thank you very much. Also, thank you for coming and taking the time out to listen to what I'm going to tell you. I thought I was going to follow Vinay, he's a hard enough act to follow, but Bono, now that's really making it difficult. But I promise not to sing. That's not one of my strong points. I really was perplexed when Vinay first told me that you'd like me to say something about and talk about what we do, and I said, what am I going to talk about, Vinay? And he said, just tell them what you do. And I said, where do I begin? And he said, start with where you came from and what. So maybe I'll just start at the beginning. We talk a lot about enterprise solution to poverty, which I've understood is the theme of this conference and what we are looking at here. I'm your living example of an enterprise solution to poverty. I started with little or nothing in my pocket, almost 50 rupees, which in those days was about $2 or $3, and was bending wire hangers in my neighborhood. I was lucky. I was not like millions of other Indians who didn't have the opportunity to grow beyond that. I had parents who were good Christians, were able to give me a very good grounding and a good family life, and also were able to deny themselves every luxury or some even basic amenities in life to see that my brother and myself got educated, and I managed to do engineering, which helped me a great deal. I don't do much engineering anymore, but it helped me a great deal to build my confidence, to be able to stand up and talk to people. I was also very, very fortunate that along the way I met people who helped me. There are many people who went out of the way and gave me an opportunity to find my first client, find my first business, find my first supplier who gave me credit, and so on and so forth. There are many, many stories around that, and I've not been able to pay back any of them. So I decided that when life was kinder to me and I was able to retire, and so from active business and at a very, very young age, I decided that the best thing I could do to thank all of them is to help people like me, people who want to start up in business. And that was about 20 years ago when I first came to Bangalore. And I was introduced to this wonderful organization called the Bridge Foundation, and the people who founded it, people like Vinay, Jagdish, and David Lobo, who were the founders of Bridge Foundation. And here was an organization that was just, the closest thing to my heart. It was helping people to start micro businesses, and I thought, fantastic, this is where I want to be. And they had me on the advisory board, and I think I made a lot of noise there, so they put me on the trustee board, and 3 years later, they made me the managing trustee. And of course, they got me to do a lot of work, so I got very involved in that. And that's how we started with the Bridge Foundation, and that's been my journey with the Bridge Foundation. I've been passionately involved with enterprise solution to poverty because I believe at the end of the day, that's the only way that people are going to come out of poverty. I believe that there is an element of enterprise in every human being. That element of enterprise is what motivates us to get educated, what motivates us to live, what motivates us to grab onto that buoy when we are drowning. And it is this enterprise that when you're poor helps you to drag yourself out of poverty. And I was just fortunate that I had organized structures like the Bridge Foundation and Opportunity International that recognized these this human need, and help people come out of poverty using enterprise across the world. Now, let me very briefly. I'm assuming that most people in this room know about microfinance and micro enterprise development, but I'll just, for those to whom this is a slightly newer concept, what we do is actually start small businesses, help people start very, very small businesses. Now, the capital of the business is about $125. So you can imagine what the business looks like. It's a small, a micro dairy consisting of 2 cows. It is a small petty shop, just a small hole in the wall where a woman can put some stuff up and sell it. It's a small eatery where she makes small snacks and a little bit of snacks and sells it in the village. It's a micro business. It looks very small to all of us, but to her, it's her whole life. It is what she's never done anything like this before. Before coming in contact with an organization like the Bridge Foundation, she has never worked. The average client is about 35 years old. She is undernourished. She has 3 or 4 children. She usually has a husband who drinks and beats her up every night. Her confidence levels are non-existent. And she's living actually a subhuman life. And at this point in time, she discovers this organization and then comes in contact with people who begin to tell her that there is more than she can do more. She can do more than just get beaten up by a husband, look after children. She can actually do a business. She doesn't believe it to begin with. Then she joins a group, and we call these, like when I explained yesterday, these are called self-help groups. The self-help group gets together, and something magical happens when 20 women come together in a room. They draw on each other's strength, they build trust, they build confidence among each other, and then they decide to go into various businesses, things that they decide that is required with guidance from our field staff. This is based on available technology, available skill set, available raw materials in that area, and available markets. They're generally guided in that direction, and they take up micro businesses. And they are equipped with a loan. The loan part of it is that's the microfinance part, is just a small part of the whole exercise. And this is something that we should remember, and I can't stop saying that microfinance is not the answer. It is the micro enterprise that's the answer. The microfinance supports the micro enterprise. And with this small loan, then they invest in capital, which goes to start this small business. And then they're generating income, and immediately 2 things happen. One is that their confidence level grows, and the second thing is that they have now disposable income, which they can either invest in a better education for their children, better health care, or they can save and grow the business. And they do both. There's first immediate need for application of this increased income, and then there is a saving element that comes into it. And there are some fallouts also. We've had situations where the husbands get very upset and very jealous, and because it kind of shakes their social standing. And we've had situations where they go and beat up the wives, and and then this is where the group come in. The group self-help group that they form. These things are talked about, these situations are talked about among themselves, and we've had some strange things happen, like where the entire group go and, seek out this man and beat him up, 20 women, so all sorts of interesting things are the fallout of this. And we've seen magical things happen over the past 20 years. We've seen women start with nothing, like absolutely nothing, not even confidence, not even clothes that they wear. And we've seen some of these people enter the state legislature in our state. We've seen some of these people grow into really big business people with, not by American standards big, but by Indian standards really seriously big, employing 50 and 60 people, 100 people. And we've seen some major transformation. Now, if these people are, let's say, fortunate enough like me to have some education and to have some luck attached to all that they do, and they go on to do something much more. I remember if you come to Bangalore, very, very popular food that you will it's a kind of a snack food that you get at all the supermarkets. It's called Waves. It's a seafood kind of snack, and this is owned by a chap called Frank Chatelier, and he started with a $100 loan from the Bridge Foundation, and today he's one of the richest people in Bangalore. So, you know, we don't have these spectacular stories, many of them, but by and large, the large majority of the women in micro-enterprise are women who have come out of poverty, built some amount of dignity, built some amount of social security, and been able to transform their lives. And we see the real effect in the next generation, in the kids who have gone to school and the kind of lives they lead, and then the generation after that. You see, what we're trying to do is engage an extremely formidable opponent in poverty, and there are no magical solutions to poverty. I mean, if you're talking of alleviating or eradicating poverty on a global scale, it sounds great, and you know, we can trade in rhetoric, and we can talk about things, and we can make millennium goals and all of that. But it's a generation thing. It's taken 1,000 years to put people into poverty, and we'll require some amount of time for it for people to move out of poverty. But as of now in India, I am extremely optimistic that we will see poverty under control, maybe not eradicated, but under control in our lifetime. In my lifetime, I'm extremely positive, at least by the year 2025. And this is, you know, yesterday there was a gentleman who made a comment about capitalism and, you know, that being the driving force. And that's what, you know, America has taught us. And I agree with it. Micro-enterprise is the micro form of capitalism. And what we try to do with the Bridge Foundation and all the other organizations is be a kind of a catalyst for the effect, the positive effect of capitalism in an economy. We have seen dramatic changes in India since 1992 when we opened up the economy and we allowed foreign capital to come in, we allowed competition to come in, and we've seen some dramatic changes happen in our country. And as an organization, we've began to realize that we need to make changes. We need to change ourselves. We need to think differently, and we need to be a more powerful catalyst to make things happen. We've been doing microfinance for over almost 20 years. We're doing enterprise development in many ways. And like I said, for us, microfinance was nothing but a necessity during our micro-enterprise activity. We could not go to rural India and tell people start businesses without supporting them with some sort of capital. But as we go forward now, and we hear about everybody, every major world leader, the World Bank, and everybody else talking about microfinance as the solution to all poverty and all evil. At one level, I feel vindicated and I feel happy about it. On the other level, it's a source of concern to me, because as I was telling somebody earlier today in the bus, that unless microfinance is applied for creation of income or creation of capital, it can do more harm than good. Microfinance per se does not solve any problem. You don't solve any problem by giving somebody a loan. What you do is, if you give the person a loan and that person uses that money to empower himself or herself to generate income or to build an asset, only then microfinance becomes the most powerful social development tool. But if they don't do that, if they use it for consumption, and there's a very thin line that divides consumption to capital creation at the onset. Consumption will happen, and consumption is a positive outcome, but it should happen out of the revenue generated out of the micro enterprise. But if consumption happens at the microfinance loan stage, it can end up doing more harm. And that is why we are living in a time now when, thanks to much of this propaganda and hype, there is a lot of money flowing into microfinance. I see billions and billions of dollars coming into microfinance in a country like India. We have seen microfinance being viewed by a lot of people as a lot of different things. The large banks in India are very, very gung-ho about microfinance. The reason that they are entering microfinance is for a totally different reason as for the people who are sitting in this room. For them, microfinance is a better revenue source. With the dropping of the prime lending rates in India going down from 10% down to 6 or 7%, they realize that you can lend at about 18 to 25% reducing balance in rural India, and for them it is a fantastic revenue source. The politicians in India are looking at microfinance with a totally different, from a different standpoint. For them, it is not only great rhetoric, but it is also a wonderful way to win the votes. You see, 75% of India's population is rural-based, and if you want to win an election in India, you need the rural vote. And now what better way to get a rural vote than to talk about microfinance? So our finance minister, our planning commissioner, and everybody is talking about microfinance. Now how do they promote that? They promote it by offering SOPs to the banks to build microfinance into their portfolio. Now, what the banks are told that if you include this much amount of microfinance into your portfolio, your risk weightage levels change, your priority sector weightage changes. So the banks are very interested in doing that. So now they have these large sums of money that they want to put out in the market, and now they're not going to be very bothered whether this goes into consumption or it goes into asset creation. Now that's a very subtle difference. In fact, microfinance, when applied, like the way Opportunity and Bridge Foundation does, to creation of micro businesses, is far more difficult to do around the world than to apply it for consumption. There are many organizations, especially in Bangladesh, and some of them very, very well known and talked about, which are quite comfortable giving large amounts of money for consumption as long as the money comes back, and it's all called microfinance. You know, it's the same term that is used, but there is a huge difference. You only have to look at the statistics, and you look at the amount of money that's gone into circulation there, the billions and billions of dollars. I mean, those countries should have been, you know, if not at least out of poverty, at least one of the richer countries in Asia now. But it does not have that positive effect. Unless the money is applied for enterprise creation, it can cause more harm. And I'm afraid a lot of microfinance happening around the world, and a lot of it happening in India, is going in that direction. So this is an area of concern for us, because we've been players in this we for a long time. Even the delivery systems that they are talking about now is something. If you look at the Bible for microfinance in India is the Khan Committee report. It's a report written by H.R. Khan, a good friend of mine who's a central bank official, and it talks of a system of delivery of microfinance across the country, which is what we've been doing for 20 years. And we know this is a system through intermediaries, where there is a main financing organization, and you work through intermediaries in rural India. Our organization, the Bridge Foundation, has been working with over 400 organizations all over across India, and in 8,000 villages. And we've seen the strengths and weaknesses of this intermediary method. And I was recently talking to him, and we are still looking for the right delivery mechanism. You may or may not be aware of it, but an average microfinance client pays an interest rate of about 35 to 40% per annum. 35 to 40% per annum. Can you imagine that? Now this is what they are paying as an interest rate. And the explanation that most microfinance institutions will give you is, oh, but this is less than what the money lender charges. The money lender charges 60%. Now let me tell you that's not true. The money lender in India, I don't know about other countries, but in India, the money lender could charge anything from 24% to 48% per annum, reducing balance, depending on the credit viability, the credit identity of the person. Now, what the money lender does is he's building into the loan component the recovery cost of the loan. So if it's 48%, it means that he has to hire goons to go and break your legs to get the money back. If it's 24%, you have a good recovery record and you are paying your loan back well. Now, microfinance institutions in India charge 36%. The good thing is that they don't hire goons. But just as bad, if you have a good recovery repayment record, you're still paying 36% because they are offsetting the bad loans against the good ones. We talk of 98% repayment. A lot of microfinance institutions talk about it. What actually they mean is 2% is written off. The other 98% is carried on the books, and it is carried on the books and carried on and on and on the books. And this is a scam that is actually going on in the microfinance industry. So next time a microfinance institution talks to you about a 98% recovery, you ask them how long the loan has been on the books. You will find a 3-month loan that's been on the books for 4 years. Now, if somebody has taken a loan for 3 months and not paid back for 4 years, there's very little chance of it getting back. But then that would spoil the recovery record. So these are the kind of things that are happening, and that's because everybody thinks that microfinance is the panacea. But unfortunately, it's not. There's no easy answers to poverty, and I'm not going to stand here today and tell you that we have the answer. But what I want to share with you is what we are doing beyond microfinance and what we are doing beyond microenterprise development in the area of microenterprise development. I had some 4 slides that I had prepared, and unfortunately, or fortunately, because I'm terrible with slides, I can't show them to you today. So I'll try to explain it to you in terms of a concept. There are 2 or 3 concepts that we are experimenting with. We are in the state of experimentation. I am personally going through a phase that I'm experimenting with trying different things and looking for solutions. In Bridge Foundation, there is a level of experimentation happening. There's another level of experimentation that's happening with me personally in my business life. I am finding other ways of doing business that are more socially relevant. I'd like to share that with you also. And I'll also like to tell you what we're trying to do in the future, and hopefully, people among you can help us in our quest. Now, where the Bridge Foundation is concerned, we are experimenting with two concepts. One is what we, for want of a better term, we call micro-resource bridging. What we're trying to do is, we analyzed our organization, and we realized that we have a presence in 8,000 villages. We have about 450 field offices across South India. We have worked with, we have started about 100,000 businesses. We have about, at any given time, about 60 or 70,000 women who are participating in our field operations, in our self-help groups. So we looked at how we can continue microenterprise and find an unlimited source of money. We were always struggling for money. If you look at organizations like Opportunity International and others, the need for capital is far greater than what they can satisfy. And so we realized that if we had to grow and if we have to look at exponential growth in enterprise development, we have to find a way that eliminates the money from the whole equation. And this worked very well for us because of the large amount of money that's coming into microfinance from other institutions, other organizations. So the basic thinking was that there is going to be a lot of money following very few ideas. And if we could provide the idea, if we could show them where the money can be spent in proper enterprise creation, and which would result in good loans, there would be a virtually unlimited supply of money. In India, it's not unlimited, but we think it's about $2.5–3 billion that is going to be available to microfinance in the next 2 to 5 years. So one of the concepts is called micro-resource bridging. Again, this is, forgive me, it's laughably simple, but I have no formal education in management or any of these things. So my concepts are very, very simple, based on very simple things. It comes out of, this mic cannot follow me, and I'm trying to draw something on the board to give you a visual representation of what I'm calling the micro-resource bridge. We found that we have rural producers. Oh, that's fine, thanks.
Is this testing? Are we live? Sorry.
I don't think it's on.
Is there a switch? Sorry, 1 second. It's on. There we go. Thanks, if you don't mind. There we go. So you can be like, oh no, you can have a second.
I know. We found that we had rural producers. Thank you. We had rural producers in India, producing products in rural India, and we had people, rural consumers. And the product that the rural producers were producing and the product that the rural consumers were consuming was the same product. The only difference is it was happening about 2,500 kilometers apart. And it was happening through multiple cycles of transaction apart. That means there were multiple middlemen in that. And the difference in the cost of the production to the consumption was to the order of about 4 to 6x. So the concept is very, very simple. It is create a micro-resource bridge, move products directly from rural producers to rural consumers. We did this very successfully with a product called the sari. Now, my wife there in blue, the pretty lady in blue, that's my wife. She's wearing a sari. The sari is the national dress for Indian. About, I think, 400 million Indian wear saris. And it's a standard product. It's a wonderful garment. Women can wear it at any time of their life and age. It never goes out of fashion, and it never changes in size. I mean, you can grow twice your size, and still the sari covers it all. So we started buying saris from rural producers in Surat, in Gujarat, and selling it to rural consumers in Tamil Nadu. Now this again was built into a micro enterprise. The people selling them, we gave the saris to women who would sell them to poorer women in the village on credit. So there was an element of profit that they would make, and there was we were able to offer them the saris at a considerable discount to the market, so that their profit margin went up. This we are calling micro-resource bridge. As you can see, there's a sort of a bridge that is happening there. The advantage here is that we can apply large amounts of capital to buy the saris and distribute it to, again, a large number of micro-entrepreneurs here at this end to sell it. This is one type of a micro-resource bridge. We have done other types where we have linked other kinds of producers and consumers. Another type that we have done is where we have linked business. Now, a very good example of that happened almost by accident is when we felt the need, there was a need among a fishing community here in coastal India for a type of a fishing net that they were buying. This was a net used to net prawns. It is a seasonal thing. It happened only a certain time of the year. The capital requirement per fisherman was about 7,000 or 8,000 rupees. That's about $150, and he would need that only for 3 or 4 months. At the end of 4 months, they would pay back the loan. Now, he went to the local retailer to buy that net. Now, the local retailer told him that there's no problem. He doesn't have to pay. He didn't have money, so he said, "I'll give you the net, but there's a slight catch. You know, when you catch these prawns, you bring the produce back to me, and I will buy it at a good price." Now, what used to happen was this guy would take the net, he would bring the prawns to the local retailer, who would buy it at a discount, and sometimes not buy it and drive the cost down. So the poverty penalty that the person was paying was close to about 150-200%. The local retailer was not only the money lender, he was giving him the net and taking back the produce, but he was also playing the merchant, so he was squeezing him on the cost of the net. he was charging him interest, and he was also taking a huge cut on the produce. So we kind of went and spoiled his party by organizing the fishermen here. And this came as an idea from our field people, and we created a group of about 1,000 fishermen, 900 families, 1,000 families. And overnight, we became the largest buyer of fishing net.
Could you just hold it as close to your mouth as possible? Thank you. There we go. Sorry.
I need lessons from Bono. So overnight, we became the largest producer of, largest buyers of fishing net in India. And this opened eyes to what we can do in terms of influencing business, because what happened was I could pick up the phone and talk to the owner of the largest fishing net company in India. We could reduce the price of the net by almost 30%. We could influence the quality of the net, you know, small things like the fishermen always wanted, you know, a blue color net, and they never could, you know, there were different shades of blue, but there's a particular shade of blue that they felt improved the catch. We could give that specification, small things like that. And they could actually buy the net from us at a much lower price. And the only unfortunate thing was that the trader went out of business in that particular town. So the whole power of aggregation and the power of direct association with big business became evident for us. Since that time, we have expanded that whole concept to include other means of creating micro businesses like sewing machines. That starts a small micro tailoring unit, a bicycle. A bicycle is a wonderful, I see a lot of college students here on bicycles, but in India, a bicycle is a means of business. It's a means of transportation. People transport loads of 150, 200 kgs on a bicycle. You know, they put cement bags, and you know, it is a bicycle can also be used to start a small roving retail outlet. So we do bicycles. We do something called a wet grinder. I'm sure none of you here. This is a small little instrument around which a small eatery can be built. You grind the rice in that, and then you can make very tasty Indian snacks. So you can actually start a micro restaurant around a wet grinder. All these products, we are dealing directly with the largest manufacturers in India. We are taking this whole idea to them. We are appealing to not only their corporate social responsibility in helping people in rural India, but we are also appealing to their business sense. When we can't get through to them in corporate social responsibility, then we tell them about the market size, we tell them about the aggregation, we tell them about centralized delivery and other things that make more sense to them. And sometimes it works one way or the other, and a lot of times it works both ways. We've been able to, in this way, evolve a micro insurance program in partnership with AIG, the American Investment Group, and this was done for the first time ever. This was about 3 years ago, which for them it solved a major problem, because the regulator in India required that AIG had a certain percentage of their portfolio to come from rural India to qualify them for activity in India. So for them, the big problem was how to get to rural India. So we showed them how they can come to rural India, be in touch with 6-7 million people at the same, overnight almost, but at a price. The price was they come up with a rural insurance portfolio, insurance product that we designed for them, and where the best deal was given to the rural person, the rural micro entrepreneur. And we created an enterprise out of that with the micro entrepreneur at the village level, this woman becoming the insurance salesperson and generating an income out of it. So it's not just going out there and selling insurance to people, it's actually teaching them to sell insurance of the right kind among the rural people. We also looked at in the micro resource bridging, we are gone on to explore all sorts of other possibilities. One of them is in terms of science and technology. This is our belief that at the end of the day, if you can inject capital and if you can inject technology into any rural or any poor community, you will transform it. Now we realize that there is a large amount of technology that is sitting here with on this side of the bridge, and that can move to that side. The limiting factor being technology is usually transported to the poor by means of business, by means of capitalism. Now, this process, though very effective, is extremely slow. It takes a long time for the trickle down to happen. If you travel to India and you come to Bangalore, you will see 21st century technology. You will see software technology and electronics that you don't even see in America. But 500 yards away from Bangalore, from the edge of the city, you will see people in the 15th century. You will see people in abject poverty. Now, this kind of a transformation, this kind of move of technology, if left to business, takes a long time and leads to so many, social issues, and you begin to question big business, and you wonder whether this is the way. But yes, this is the way, but it needs an accelerator. And we find that as a social development organization, as the Bridge Foundation, we can be a major accelerator in this. We found that there is so much of technology that is available in scientific establishments around the world, and also in India. And they're sitting collecting dust in shelves. They've never find, somebody's written a thesis, and some brilliant guy has written, there are all these brilliant people, far more brilliant than I am, who have done wonderful work and have never found an application for that work. And we found that we can take this technology, and most of the time this technology is readily available, freely available, and all it needs is an application. And we have used this in a few of our programs. We have worked with the Wood Research Institute, the Indian Wood Research Institute. We are talking to the Central Food Technology Institute. We're talking to the Coconut Development Board. We're talking to the Silk Research Institute, with whom we are doing a very, very major project on developing a new kind of silk. The concept is very simple. It's still the bridge. We are constantly looking for what technology we can find which is going to be relevant to India. And here again, I must tell you, it's the choice of technology that's all important, because our quest for technology comes out of a good understanding of what we have, of what rural India really needs. Because most technology that has been developed, especially West, since the industrial age, the West has been in the forefront of developing technology, because that's where the capital is available for R&D. But most of the technology is Western oriented towards reduction of manpower, towards acceleration of production. But in India, we want exactly the opposite. We want to find ways of how we can use the manpower that we have. So we are looking at appropriate technology which we can use the people that we have. To give you an example, we are now partnering with the Government of India Science and Technology to find technology, people who have developed technology, and help them exploit this and grow this technology. And one of the projects we're working on is somebody who's developed a bicycle that is a refrigerator that sits on a bicycle, and where this guy pedals. It sounds ridiculous, but it's very effective. He actually rides this bicycle from village to village, and as he rides it, it cools. I mean, this refrigerator works. Now it has a very practical application, because that immediately becomes a whole, micro business in itself. You can sell ice creams, and you can carry fish and meat and all sorts of things. So we are helping to develop that. So this is all in this concept of the micro resource bridge. Would you like to ask me questions now, or would you like to ask me later? But if you like not to ask me questions, that's even better. If there are no questions, I'd like to move on. And
This might require some assistance from the nearby law school or school of management, but as you get into creating these bridges, Bridge Foundation is probably a nonprofit?
Yes.
Yes. And it seems like you're getting into a lot of activities that are really making would make a profit. Do you run those also as a nonprofit, or can you, as a nonprofit, can you own a for-profit to create some of these bridges that are great opportunities?
I expected the Indian taxman to ask me that question. But we focused on that. Because we are a non-profit, we have to guard our non-profit status. So no activity of ours is towards profit. But we have established with the Indian tax authorities that our focus on poverty alleviation is through enterprise development. So all our activity is towards enterprise development. And any of the benefit that we derive out of aggregation is driven down back into the hands of our clients, the MED clients that we have. Whatever we earn out of that is a surplus to make the organization work. The idea is to bring that benefit of large business of aggregation into the hands of the people.
So you're creating the idea, but then you're spinning it off.
Exactly. Now, for example, on the fishing net, what happened was when we started expanding this program, we took it to we put this retailer out of business, but when we took it to the next district, the word had already got there, and that retailer dropped his price by 35%. So our field staff got back to me and they said, this is what has happened, He's dropped his price. So I said, okay, we just leave it. We've already won. We're not having a shot fired. This is what we actually wanted. And that's how our objective is to be a catalyst. We've also found that by aggregating people into groups, like with this fishing community, they got into a group and they came back to us and said that, look, now we are producing these, we've got all these prawns. Can you help us sell it? Can we bring it all together, put it in a reefer truck? Of course, that was beyond our scope because we have had limitations, but we've handed them over to other organizations who can look at that, or help them organize into a group, a cooperative or something that can actually take this forward. What we're trying to do is be like a catalyst. We don't envisage ourselves doing any of this on the long term. We are looking at being a catalyst. As an organization, we will keep looking at opportunities like that and keep building ourselves as a catalyst. It's the concept that's more important to us. The next idea that we were looking at is what we're calling the value convergence cone. If you look at any product, especially most of us wear a cotton shirt, or we've got some woolen shirt, clothes, or anything like that. All these products actually started with some farmer, and probably a large number of farmers. If you look if you draw on the x-axis, you draw the number of people involved, and on the y-axis, if you look at the capital appreciation, the appreciation in the increase in markup, so increase in value or markup, you find that as the number of people reduce, the increase in markup increases. So you look at just plain cotton, or you look at in our case we have drawn this cone for airy silk. You look at the production of the cocoons, the large number of farmers, and the production cost is something like 300 rupees. After that, the next stage is the degumming and ginning, at which point the cost goes to 700 rupees. From where it goes into the next level, which is spinning it into yarn, into fiber. The cost goes to almost 2,000 rupees. This is per kilo. So all this is per kg. And from there, weaving it into a product and then retailing the product. If you look at the capital appreciation from bottom to top, could be as high as about 20 to 35 times, 35x. That's the kind of capital appreciation that happens. Now, this kind of a value convergence cone is something like organizations like Walmart have done very, very, very successfully to drive profit back into the hands of the shareholders of the company. What we are trying to do is exactly the opposite. We are trying to use the value convergence cone to drive the profit back into the hands of the farmers in the form of a better and better procurement price for the farmer. So by doing this in the area of agriculture, what ARI, I'll explain in a minute what ARI is. We have increased the procurement cost of ARI to almost 650 rupees per kg, more than doubled it. What we've effectively done is more than increase the revenue that an ARI farmer earns by a factor of almost 2.5 times. Not just double, but more than double, because the capital cost remains the same. ARI is a type of silk. Let me give you a brief about this. Is a program that we are doing. This value convergence cone, what it requires us to do is produce the ARI silk and control every step of the process right up to the retail level here. And what we're doing is we are starting out with the ARI farmer. We are teaching them how to grow ARI silk. We are also developing the eggs, the DFLs, the disease-free layings. We are putting in labs for that. We are then taking it to the next stage of purchasing the product back from the farmer, deginning this, degumming it, having it woven again in a traditional style, again back in rural India, to produce a finished product which we want to sell in the major stores, in the most expensive places where we can. Hopefully I don't know what's the expensive store in America, like the Harrods of England or whatever. So some expensive store to get the maximum amount of margin on it, so that we can drive back into the hands of the farmer the highest procurement price. This is basically just a concept. We are looking at doing this we have already started doing it in ARI silk, but we are looking at doing this in other things. There are other good examples of this happening. One good one in India, for anybody here from India, is the whole product, Amul product. This is the milk produce cooperative, which has been doing this successfully for many years. We are looking at also doing this in other areas, where we are now exploring this whole thing in dehydrated vegetables. Again, encouraging people to grow the vegetables, and then teaching them, giving them the technology to dehydrate it and to bring it back right up to retail and export for sale at the highest price. So this is what we're calling the value convergence cone. There are some difficulties in this. There are some drawbacks. It requires the organization to be able to have a grip on every part of the development process. It also requires that we focus on only one product at a time. As of now, we are looking at ARI. We want to expand it slowly. Unlike the bridging, where we can look at multiple products, where we're dealing with other companies here, it has to be focused on just a few products. So, any questions on this? If not, I have one more thing to tell you about, and then we can get into some more developments. I don't know how I'm doing time-wise. Oh, I have time. Great. So, any questions on the Converge? This is extremely simple to look at. It's very, very difficult to do, because it means controlling every step of the production process, which is we're having a nightmare doing anywhere now. The other thing I wanted to share with you today is basically more to do with my own personal journey and my own personal struggles with business. For many years I found that I'm virtually living a double life. I have a business activity and I have a social development activity, which consists of running the Guardian Bank and the Bridge Foundation. So I have been looking for ways of how I can make this work for me in my real life, and I've come up with this idea of a socially responsible business, a business that can actually make serious amounts of money, at the same time offer a social solution and offer us, give a social service of some kind. And again, this happened almost by accident. I stumbled on a business, and I'd like to share this business with you and what is happening. And it has now become, because of the success of the business, it's becoming a model which I want to replicate in other such businesses. And maybe it'll inspire somebody in this room to try this out with something that they would like to do. What we put together is something called, is a taxi company. You know, it sounds again, it sounds extremely simple. It happened almost by accident. I was giving a talk in a room like this, and sitting in the audience was a friend of mine who at that point in time owned the radio tower in the city of Bangalore, and he knew about some legislation that was coming out that was going to make radio taxis possible in our city. This was new about 5 years ago, and so he wanted me to get involved with a taxi company, and so I tried to create a system around it. What we did was create a business model where we had a micro business made out of every taxi. So every taxi was an individual business owned by an individual. So what you have now is a number of small units, number of small taxis. We have about 300 of them and growing. And these are all come under an umbrella of one organization. So what this organization does, it's very much like the franchising idea. What this organization does is provides a corporate identity to all these individual taxis. It provides an aggregated purchase advantage. It provides quality services. It maintains quality standards. It sets quality standards, and it provides a uniform identity to everybody. It also has access to the latest technology, which the individual businesses would find very difficult to have, and it offers a unique service in what we call fleet management. What this is actually giving a kind of a front face to every individual driver. Now, every individual here is he is usually his only qualification is having a driving license and about I'm trying to convert this, about $200 as capital. With that, he gets a brand new car to drive. The car is arranged by the company. He pays off this car in 3 years. He makes his net earning per month after all expenses is about $250. The company's net earning per taxi per month is about $20. And this relationship is extremely transparent. They know how much the company makes, and the company knows exactly how much that is made by this individual. This effect has been very dramatic because it's allowed the individual to gain the confidence to be part of this company and allowed the company to also make a tremendous amount of profit. So we make an embarrassing amount of profit out of this small earning per individual. And it's also a very replicable model. It's something that we can replicate any place, anywhere, technology permitting. So we're very excited about this model. We are now looking at expanding this model to look at other businesses. One of that is we are looking at is primary health clinics that can be run by individuals, mostly nurses, that in rural India. Again, this is could be covered under a common brand equity. It could be covered under identity that is created, a confidence level that's created among people. We are looking at the whole area of micro retail. Again, small businesses that are small retail outlets that are again controlled by individuals who own that retail outlet, but there is an aggregated purchase, there is an aggregation of resources, there is aggregation of buying power that can come out of the effects of this big business. So it is the advantage of big business, and as well as the individual enthusiasm of a micro business coming together. So this broadly is the various concepts. We have also looked at the next level of microcredit and where it is going in India. And one of the areas that we feel that there is a need for and we are looking at addressing is the whole process of creating a credit identity among the poor. We for years, we have had 20 years of microfinance, but the poor have never really had a credit identity. There is no record, there's nobody maintaining a record of who's repaid the loan. So you have microfinance clients that take multiple loans at sometimes higher interest rates. Now most people, in developed countries, once you establish your credit identity, you probably are able to negotiate a better credit terms from your credit institution. Whereas for the rural and for the poor, that simply doesn't exist. So what we are now putting together is an organization called Micron. It stands for Microcredit Referencing and Obviating Network. It is, again, this is developed as a for-profit company. It's based on one of our listed companies, which is working towards, in a for-profit environment, create a credit referencing agency, a credit bureau, which focuses on the small to medium to micro client in India. This is going to be licensed under the central bank requirement. It's, it's incredible, but in a country like India, we still don't have a credit bureau, credit referencing agency. So this is going to be one of the first of its kind. This is something new. We've never done it before. We are looking at credit scoring of microfinance clients, of cooperative bank clients. We're looking at purchasing patterns. We're looking at establishing a scientific way of establishing their creditworthiness so that they can benefit from it. These are new innovations. These are new things that we are looking at. And I've been spending some time in the healthcare sector in India. I've been on the board of something called the Emmanuel Hospital Association, which is an interesting organization which was formed to take over the mission hospitals. There were these missionaries who came to India over the past 150 years, set up wonderful establishments in hospitals in India, and then either died or went back, and these organizations started deteriorating and falling apart. And EHA was formed to look after these organizations and to refurbish them. EHA has been struggling to be able to put together these revive these organizations because of the huge capital requirement, the serious problems that we are facing in terms of healthcare in India with obsolescence, with the capital, the cost of medical equipment being so high, with competition coming in from the corporate hospital. So one of the concepts that we are looking to create is the Christian corporate hospital, and we are talking to a few doctors and a few people in the healthcare area for this. And this will be, again, a first of its kind. What it is basically looking at committed Christians who like to start hospitals and empowering them to do that, empowering them with capital, empowering them with technology, with management expertise to start healthcare institutions, especially in secondary and tertiary towns in India. We also feel that this is one way of being able to revive some of the 3,500 Christian hospitals that are on the verge of closing down in India. So this is something that we are looking at. I already mentioned micro retail. We happen to have promoted 22,000 micro retail outlets all across South India, and much to these retail outlets were promoted over a period of time as micro businesses. None of these outlets talk to each other. None of the purchases of these outlets are aggregated. So we are looking at how we can aggregate these, how we can bring them all together and bring them under one umbrella as a unified business. I'm getting tired. But there is, yeah, there is one last thing. We are looking at agro clinics, and this is something that we are looking at as a means to promote agricultural, organic farming and organic agriculture through agro clinics that will help farmers to take the right decisions towards the right organic pesticide that they will use. Now, all these new, in these new initiatives are basically based on technology that we don't have, but only on expertise and understanding of the market that we have. We are looking at help that we can get from anybody in this room, or we can get from anywhere else that can bring us this technology that can help us. We are not looking at necessarily at capital, but we are looking at involvement of people to help us in these technologies. So if there's anything that I've said here that is of interest to you, is anything that you would like to discuss further, I could talk at length on each of these different issues. Each one is an initiative. I've just given you a very, very brief overview of what we're doing. If there's anything in specific, I'll be happy to interact with you and be able to give you more information on that. Now, if there's going to be any questions.
I want to, first of all, yeah, you can put that over there. We'll bring another mic up here. I want to, first of all, thank Collin Timms for just an incredibly stimulating set of insights into the dynamic work that's being done in India. And we have a few minutes now for questions. I want to note that we have just a few minutes now, but you'll be able to continue talking with him and with each other on the break from 10 to 10:30. And then we'll also have a panel following the chapel service on microfinance with Vinay and Collin Timms as participants, and there'll be opportunity there for interaction between all of the attendees and that panel as well. So another context in which to interact in part with these questions and projects that Collin Timms has talked about. But let's take just a minute now for a question or two before our break.
You mentioned that you had 60 to 70,000 clients, presumably mostly women, probably meeting weekly in trust bank meetings. And you also mentioned that among the other businesses that you're looking into is primary health care. And I'm wondering if there's a tremendous potential in those weekly meetings for delivery of services like health care, testing, follow-up treatments that would be very difficult in the absence of the kinds of neighborhood meetings that you have already taking place.
We are
or if there are other businesses or other kinds of services that for which those weekly meetings would be the ideal delivery means.
The weekly meetings are a wonderful platform to be able to talk about a wide variety of things, and the link between primary health care and health and the weekly meetings has been well established. We are, with collaboration with the EHA and our microfinancing arm, looking at trying to figure out a health insurance program that works out of the microfinance linkage. See, what the microfinance establishment does is create a level of organization at the village level, and it also creates a payment system, of distribution and receipt of money, which is a well-established system. Now, if we can bring in microinsurance, if we can have a risk assessment mechanism that sits on top of that, we can actually bring in health insurance at the micro level. The micro insurance that we are doing is not health insurance, it is life insurance. So we would like to bring in the health insurance aspect. In fact, after a similar talk in England a year and a half back, we had somebody got very interested in it, and he's actually doing a study in South India with our help to design a health insurance program that can be worked out there. We are supporting him with we're giving him the laboratory to actually do it in the field, and he's funding it and doing it himself. And if we are successful, we could probably come up with the first purely health insurance program linked to microfinance. We still haven't figured it out yet, but we are working towards it.
Just to say that we have, there is a pilot project which I'll share later, which we have started 3 months ago, exactly linking self-help groups with health insurance.
There's a person standing here, but as a pastor experienced with congregations, I know groups take time to move. So I want to break now and give people a chance to move toward the common room for our break, to have some coffee and refreshments, to talk more with Collin Timms and with each other about these projects, and then invite you back to this space at 10:30 for the beginning of our chapel service. So once again, thank you very much.